I would like to speak to David. David from Ireland.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, David says, I don't know how to deconstruct my supernatural beliefs. David, is it David? Is that how you say it?
It's David. It's David. It's David, but people usually call me Bob, so choose whichever.
You should hear the
I'll
things
take
that,
it.
yeah, they call me far worse things, David or Bob. What are your supernatural beliefs?
Well, first thing, I used the word supernatural because I didn't know what other sort of word to use. I think the world is entirely natural, and even if there is some sort of spiritual realm, it would have been a natural part of the natural world. But basically, I used to be a Catholic. I started reading the Bible, and thanks to that, I wasn't Catholic anymore.
Yeah,
do it.
But
there's a magic bullet.
Stuff like, yeah, no, I think everyone should read the Bible. That helps immensely to get out of the belief in it. But I started going into stuff like occult Wicca, stuff like tarot cards, and stuff like that, crystals. I never went into it deep enough to a point where I would think that you can cure cancer with crystals or anything like that. But I had certain experiences that I have my own senses, and I use those senses to examine the world. And those senses, when I was using tarot cards or playing with crystals and all of that, those senses were telling me, hey man, what you're doing here have some sort of effect on the world and is in some capacity real. That energy is flowing through you and through them crystals, or those cards are telling you something about the reality. And those experiences, well, they are personal, and I get why no one else would believe in the fact that, or not the fact, in their legitness, just based on what I am able to say. For me, well, I use my senses to detect that sort of part of the world, but I understand at the same time on a logical sort of way that I can experience things that are not necessarily true. Brains can be fooled.
David, can you go back for a second? When you say you use tarot and it brings to light some things that make sense to you, are you able to give us an example of something where you went in not knowing an answer, you used the crystals or the cards, and you came out with an answer? Can you give us an example of that?
Well, that's the part where I was saying, like, I never went in believing that it was having like extra super hyper powers. So one of the things, for example, I used cards is sort of meditation, and trying to sort of help me with, like, how to say it, like develop relations with people, for example, right? I would sit down with the cards and ask about like what that person is, what they would, how they would react to a certain ways of behavior, of my behavior, and sort of in that regard, ask those cards or ask the whatever is behind those cards to help me in that case. And a lot of the time, then when I would sit down with those people, for example, and then use the knowledge or the information that I got from those cards to get some answers or get them to behave in a specific way that I would want them to behave, or that I would want them to react to my sort of behavior. That would, for the most part, sort of work, and
yeah,
and I would see the effect of it, like
Bob, aka David.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. And I have friends who are atheists who use tarot cards as a way to focus their thoughts, a way to center themselves, so to speak, and put themselves in a receptive, meditative state, or in a contemplative state, right? And so it helps them examine the things that they're going through in life and maybe consider things in a more deliberate and not reactive way, like we tend to do, that autopilot I've mentioned before on the show, where we just kind of in autopilot. It could be chicken bones, it could be tarot cards, it could be tea leaves, it could be the horoscope. I don't really see any reason to believe that just because you get yourself in a different state, because you go through this ritualistic process of looking at tarot cards, that means that there's a supernatural or whatever, extra natural, I don't know how you want to phrase it, power inherent in the cards. I think it's in the process. And I think what you're really doing, this is me asserting something here. So people go ahead and go wild in the comments. I don't care. I think you're putting yourself in a different mental state. Okay.
Can I add to that? I mean,
please.
Yeah, everything you're saying, Johnny, makes sense there. David, I've been in the same situation where it's like, I wonder how certain people might respond or how this conversation should go and things like that. For me, I know personally, I prefer taking really long walks where I'm not thinking about this stuff all the time, where I can get distractions out of my head. Sorry, as I put this back in here. I like taking just long walks and being able to think about this stuff because that puts me in a different state from the, always on mentality that I'm in otherwise. But that helps me focus and that helps me relax. It sounds like you're doing the exact same thing I am, but instead of going out and just trying to get away from distractions, you're using tarot cards, you're using crystals, you might be meditating if other people may be doing that. Nothing wrong with doing those things, but I think Johnny had the point, which is you're doing this to get in a state where you could focus on this stuff and think through possibilities and how things may go. And a lot of times we don't have the ability to do that because there's always some sort of distraction. And so for a lot of people, having that way, having a horoscope kind of point you somewhere, or having a tarot card that might help you think about a certain possibility, that's all well and good, but it doesn't mean those items have any special power to them. It is all about how you are able to think through these things when you're when you're around that stuff. And the truth is, again, I'm not saying you should just stop using those things if you think they help you, but if there was something else that brought you that same sense of calm and that sense of getting away from other distractions, you may find that you come to the same conclusions.
Yeah. It's Dumbo's magic feather, David.
Well,
it is.
I do get what you're saying, and yeah, in a way, I'd say that's at least part of it, if not a big chunk of it. The thing is, just like I was saying earlier, right? The description when I called you, the description that I gave was, I believe said something along the line, what other people would call supernatural. That's because, again, even if there is something that you could call supernatural, I think it is a part of the natural world. It exists, therefore it is natural. But like tarot cards, one example, right? And everything sort of meshes together because when we go to, like, for example, crystals, I felt like I was able to pump an energy into them crystals and then access it later on to, let's say, relax and sort of refresh myself quicker than normally would have happened. Or, for example, I could, using a weird language, but load that crystal with an energy, hand it to my friend without telling him what I did, and then ask him, like, okay, hold it in your hand, concentrate on it, what do you feel? And he would have said to me, okay, I feel, the warmth or some sort of thing that wouldn't be possible or wouldn't be expected if that would be just a hunk of stone that has no other sort of anything behind it.
Have you tried that? Because that actually sounds like a wonderful experiment to try.
Yeah, you said would have, but I'd like to see what he did say.
Yeah, so I have quite a few friends that are sort of in that spiritualistic.
Right. Right. They're already there. They're already there. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, I get it. But the thing is, you know, when you sit down with them, right? So I try to apply something akin to like a scientific method to it, right? So let's say I would sit down, have 10 stones, 10 quartz stones, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hold each of it for, I don't know, half a minute in my hand with closed eyes, right?
Sure.
And only one of them, for example, I would, or two or whatever, random number, I would say, okay, you know, I'll be loading the energy into this one. And the rest of them, if anything, I'll try to clean out from any sort of residual, whatever it could be. So to set it, you know, so to let them choose, okay, this one is the loaded one and this one is the empty one. Sure. And while it wasn't 100%, you know, what you call it, 100% accurate.
Effective. Yeah.
It was over 50%. Usually there was like 7. No, that I did a couple of years ago. But
I mean, we can play this game about the scientific process you're using here to try to prove that these things have some energy to it. But I think I just want to, and I don't know what method you're using, and I don't know if the stones are identical and if the control group works and all that stuff. But I am wondering, like, if you just were looking for direction on certain questions, on certain issues you have, and you tried a different process. I mean, it's really hard in real life to come up with a perfect situation where, you know, you think the crystals helped you in this situation, but if you just did something else, you talked it out with a friend of yours, you went on a walk, you did something else that helps you relax, would you have come up with something different? I know that's hard to play out in real life because you only get kind of one chance at doing that stuff.
I never would have claimed that, you know, okay, let's say a crystal for tarot cards would be something that is better.
But you are saying they have some special energy to them, and that's
But even seeing that, what I'm saying is basically, you know, things in the life can be tools, right? You can use a hammer to nail a thing to the wall, but you can also use an old piece of bread. An old stale piece of bread might not be as good of a hammer.
The difference is you're saying here the hammer has some sort of special ability that those other tools don't.
No. What I'm saying is, I think the tarot card might be even that piece of bread, but it's still having that ability, and I have a hard time coming to, because I try to be as reasonable and as use logic in my life. So when I come to sort of a scenario where I'm thinking about that, I am struggling because the logic sort of and the way that I am observing the world, for the most part, tells me like, nah, that's bollocks. But at the same time, my experiences tells me, hey, David, but there is something behind it. You might not understand.
David, have you ever looked into James Randi? Have you ever looked into the debunking work of James Randi?
Yes, I have, and this is something that when most people, like I speak with people and they tell to me, you know, oh, I put a force on this guy and he's gonna die next week, or something like that. I never thought that any of it has such power to do such a great effect. I'd be like, well, great, go to James Randi Foundation. You're going to get loads of money or something. You can do something like that, you know, because, but that's why I'm struggling. The personal experience tells me there is something there, but it's not as powerful as some other people might have claimed, or it's not as special. But I cannot get my head.
I think we get what you're saying, David. I don't mean to I don't want to cut you off, but we're kind of going around and around in circles. I get it. You think that there's a something there, and that you have done this sort of.
You've tried to be scientific about it, and it seems convincing to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess the only way that I could suggest that you could continue to do your work, talk to people about. Continue to look at debunking scientific experiments, setting up the experimental methodologies and stuff like that. I think this is something you're hung up on every single time a person has tried to prove that they have some sort of, I hesitate to say supernatural paranormal, because I think you're acknowledging that maybe it's just an unmeasured physical phenomenon.
Natural,
right? Yeah, natural phenomenon. Okay. every time somebody is trying to prove energy healing, crystal junk, all that kind of stuff, it's always proven to be some mistake in the testing or some fraud.
Or
Doesn't
the
mean that
types of rocks you're using, or the types of
right.
or the methods you're
This
using
is
unbeknownst to you, no matter how scientific you are trying to be.
Yeah, you could switch out these
this is
crystals
part
for
of it.
pieces of cardboard, I'm sure, is what you're saying. It's not about the crystal, it's about the intentionality or something like that. And you're acknowledging all that stuff. I, I, I I think the more you read up on this, I think the more you're going to find that you are looking for positives where maybe you're getting mixed results. There's a lot of noise in your data, and you're selecting out the positives, or you're
And
really
you
psychic.
and you want it to be true. I mean, you
Yeah,
said you're using this stuff and it helps you go through these situations and you feel
yeah,
like you came out on the right side of it because you used these methods. But also,
Well,
like,
I
it sounds like you want to give credit to something other than yourself for making
yeah,
some of these choices. I don't know why you need to take that extra step.
well, I don't think I'm trying to make the credit to something else, because ultimately, even if it is actually working the way I think it is working, it's still me who is using those tools. It's still me that starts, turning the wheels. It's not, you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
So, like, and I don't think that, the tarot cards or the sort of crystals and all would have done much without sort of conscious effort on someone's part, or some creature's part, right? But the thing is, like I said, I'm struggling with it because I in a way I don't want to believe it, but just like loads of times was said on the shows, belief isn't a choice. You're either convinced or
yeah,
not, and I
It
am.
yeah,
sounds very
Even though
much like what our first
in a
caller
way I
was
don't want to be.
saying. It sounds like what our caller was saying earlier,
yeah,
which is, there may be people who believe in a very specific brand, a specific type of Christianity or what have you, but maybe it's better if they believe in some nebulous God out there because it's less harmful. And part of me wants to argue, yeah, but it's all wrong. And part of me says, yeah, I mean, I guess it's better than the alternative you just offered me, which is you
yeah,
don't believe these crystals are supernatural. You just think there's some form of energy there.
yeah,
And so, I mean, I kind of am going back and forth on this. Do I want to give you credit for acknowledging that these aren't special, but maybe there's something there, or do we just say, but there's nothing there, and you're trying to create something where nothing there exists, and you don't
yeah,
have to do that, but it is hard to give that up because a lot of people, like you said, your friends believe in some of that stuff, and it seems like you can always find positive reinforcement for the idea that these things may have something to them. But I also feel like if all your crystals and tarot cards disappeared, minus the psychological reaction you might have to it, you would probably end up in the same space.
yeah. What do you say to that, Bob? And then I'm going
Yeah.
to ask you. I'm going to let you go and say one last thing. What's your response to that?
Um, well, my response, I just don't know. Like, to be honest, like I called, hoping that yours gonna be, you would say something that would help me, because that's what I called for. I am struggling with
Help
it
you
for a
find
while now.
confirmation that
It's not
there is
super
something
important
to it,
for
or
me.
help
So
you realize that there's nothing there?
Yeah, because we can yell at you,
help
David,
me
if we want
come.
to. We can yell at you and tell you that you're full of shit. We're not going to do that because this is clearly
Well,
something you're going through. You've got to work out the steps. All right. Let me say this real
absolutely,
quick.
yeah, yeah.
Everyone out there, hold on, David, 1 second. I'll be brief. I promise.
Hmm.
Every single person out there who has supernatural beliefs or they're questioning it, you can tune into a show like this and you can listen to people dunk on believers all you want. Okay. But the fact is, the only person who can make you examine the facts and be critically analyze the claims made is you, the person at home. And that includes David, that includes Johnny, includes Hemant as well. Anyone else, you can't just follow along. You can't follow a trail of breadcrumbs to critical thinking. You must do the work. Okay. So David, I'm sorry we didn't give you the answers that you needed, uh, but I think we did point out a few things to you that the
It
power.
definitely helps to think about stuff.
Yeah, yeah, the power was within you all along. You didn't need that magic feather. Um, you really don't. That focusing your mind puts you into a different mental state. I'll grant you that, but I will not agree that you have
You have not stumbled upon magical crystals, even if
No.
they're giving smaller doses of magic. You have not
Yeah.
quite gotten there.
No.
But again, you figuring that out for
Yeah.
yourself, and not because we're saying that. That'll take time.
Yeah, keep examining this stuff. Keep going into it. Do me a favor, David. You're still on the line, but you're muted because I want to say this one last thing. While you're working this out, can you promise me in your head, all right, and telepathically send it to me, along with a can of cream soda or whatever, Mountain Dew, um, that you will not try to sell any of these services, that you will not encourage people to abandon medical advice or make financial decisions based upon any of this stuff, and that you will always communicate with the friends who believe in this kind of woo your doubts and work with them to try to find a way to falsify the claims. Okay, do that. And although it's woo, it feels like it's fairly benign woo. But with that, I'm gonna drop you. You examine this kind of stuff, Hemant. Do you live in this world? You see this stuff out in media. What are your thoughts? Your final thoughts on that?
Oh, I
Mm.
definitely see it out there, but again, I think people want to shortchange how much credit they deserve for
Yeah.
themselves, because I'm telling you, I mean, look, I am not unique when I say I feel like there's always stuff to deal with, think about, and it can feel overwhelming at times. And I know for me, like, the best answer I have found for myself is I need to get away from the computer for a little
Mhm.
while. And when I have the time to do that, and whether that's in the shower, whether that's when I'm walking in a forest where there's no Wi-Fi anywhere,
Mhm.
like, it really does help clear my mind and give me a chance to, like, I don't know, imagine conversations or work through
Yeah.
possibilities and try to figure out what the right move or something might be.
Yeah.
And listen, for other people, and I'm not even mad about it, but for other people, they rely on supernatural things, or they
Mhm.
go to church because church is the place where they can clear their heads and give themselves over to something else. Like, I kind of get why
Mhm.
people might want to do that, because they feel
Yeah.
like it is God that is who is speaking to them, or they feel like there's something in the horoscope that understands them personally. But I think you got to the heart of it, which is it's that process that has the power. It's
Mhm.
not the thing you are relying on. There's no magic in the forest that gives me any more clarity on these situations. Like, if
Yeah.
meditation and yoga is your thing, that's cool. There are ways of doing that that are not supernatural,
Yeah.
or, even though it's rife with it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's you just got to put yourself in a mental state where you could think through these things, and you don't have to give credit to anyone else or anything else. Like you said, like, the shoes had all the power, you were jumping on your own. It
Yeah.
wasn't the shoes, it was you. You
Oh,
just think it's the shoes,
I've
whatever it
had
is.
I have had I have had paradigm shifting experiences from meditating, yoga, long runs will do it to you as
Yeah.
well. I went to Sagrada Familia in Barcelona once upon a time, walked into that giant church with all those stained glass and the structures, and fully not believing in the power of sweet Jesus Christ. But I was
Right.
like, this is beautiful. And I walked out feeling differently because it's framed in a way aesthetically.
Right. And it's
That's,
it's
yeah,
almost giving you the space to
yeah.
think through these things and feel like not everything is as big as you're making it out to be. And again, there's power to that, especially
Oh, yeah.
when right now you're always inundated with technology or whatever's happening around you.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty to worry about and freak out about. But if you just can get away from it,
Mhm.
whatever helps you do that, that's a powerful thing. But it doesn't mean there's anything special that you're
Agreed.
doing. There's no power in the thing you're using.
Exactly.
Taylor Swift is not magic,
So,
even if it helps.
some
Even
would
if it
argue
helps.
otherwise, Emmett. I don't know.